Congestion pricing, will it make the Big Apple greener, or will it turn Manhattan into an enclave for the rich? Good morning and welcome to Up Close. I'm Diana Williams. No one in New York City would disagree. Traffic in Manhattan is a nightmare. Trucks double park, drivers block intersections, and cabbies race to get around it all. Some have suggested getting rid of all personal vehicles in Manhattan, but the more likely scenario is what's known as a congestion fee. London currently has one, along with several other large European cities, and it has reduced traffic and made for cleaner air. But will it work here in New York City? Eyewitness News reporter Carolina Terrazona takes a look.
In the heart of Manhattan, this and this is pretty normal. Combine the two and you get this: congestion and lots of it. Using Earth Day as a backdrop, Mayor Bloomberg announced a few ideas he has to make New York greener. The most controversial? Congestion pricing.
The question is not whether we want to pay, but how do we want to pay? With an increased asthma rate, with more greenhouse gases, wasted time, lost business, and higher prices? Or do we charge a modest fee to encourage more people to take mass transit?
That modest fee is an $8 charge for cars entering Manhattan anywhere south of 86th Street Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. For trucks, it would be $21.
I think it's a lot of money, $8. I cross maybe 10 times a day the Lincoln Tunnel.
Could you afford to pay that?
I need to work.
It's not such a good idea because it's very expensive, you know, it's just crazy.
Black cars and yellow cabs would be exempt. The mayor says driving here on weekends would be free. So would the use of the FDR Drive and the West Side Highway. Still, some say it's a bad idea and just another ploy to collect from the working class New York. The mayor says this is going to help New York be greener.
Yeah, you're right. With pollution, well, they stopped every car to collect the money. That's your mayor.
But at this point, it is still only just a proposal. It would have to be implemented by the state legislature in Albany. In Midtown, Carolina Terrazona, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
So can congestion pricing work here in New York City, and will the state legislature approve it? We are joined now by Queens City Councilman John Liu, who chairs the council's Transportation Committee, and he questions the impact that congestion pricing will have on people living in the outer boroughs, particularly Queens. And also with us is Sam Schwartz. He's known as Gridlock Sam, and he has been pushing congestion pricing since the 70s. You have long supported this idea. We heard in the story that Carolina just did that a lot of people aren't really crazy about this idea. They question it, and a lot of people worry it could put them out of business. So, Councilman Liu, first begin on what impact you think it would have on the outer boroughs.
I think a lot of people are somewhat negative about the proposal because the way in which the plan has been laid out has only focused on fees and discouraging people from driving into Manhattan by charging them a lot of money.
But that's the idea, trying to discourage people to drive into Manhattan.
That's correct. But there's not enough of incentives giving people encouragement to, say, take more mass transit. People often talk about London and other cities where congestion pricing has been successful. Of course, it's going to reduce congestion. Of course, it's going to clean the environment because fewer cars will be on the road. If you charge someone to do something that was free before, then of course fewer people are going to do it.
But there are some who question whether or not it has been successful in London. There are some who say it hasn't been as successful as it's been touted. Right, Sam?
There are people that are saying that, and in fact there's a whole swift boating movement right now that's trying to knock down congestion pricing in New York by sending out a lot of false information. The fact is London implemented the program in 2003, February 2003. 16 months later, they re-elected their mayor. Stockholm did it for 6 months in 2006. 3 months later, they held a referendum. Majority of the people voted for it. So it's been popular in London, it is popular in Stockholm, and it's been popular every single place it's been implemented.
So when you talk about, though, these incentives for people to be happy about about this, what kind of incentives are you talking about?
Well, let's start with one of the examples that Sam just brought up. In Stockholm, there was a substantial decrease, I think about 20% decrease in the amount of traffic, but there was a corresponding increase in the amount of bus service available. And so what I think people are open to the idea because we understand that there's a need to have long-term sustainability. But we should be looking to sustain, not constrain.
But there are plenty of people in this city, and you know it, who are very upset that they don't have adequate bus
Exactly
service
right.
in certain areas of this city. Buses don't come on time, buses don't come regularly, sometimes buses don't come at all.
Which is why I think that before we move any further on congestion pricing, there ought to be a commitment by the city, by the state government, to provide real mass transit for everybody who lives within the city limits, and specifically to offer everybody a 30-minute mass transit ride to Manhattan. It can be done with expanded express bus service, high-speed ferry links, and expanded access to the commuter rail lines such as Long Island Railroad and Metro North. And to provide that kind of a round trip for the same fee that the mayor would impose on drivers, $8, no more than $8 round trip.
Can you do that, though, before you implement the congestion pricing? Because the idea is using congestion pricing to help pay for all of this, right?
Yes, but you can also pay it forward. You can issue bonds and develop a public-private partnership. There are businesses chomping at the bit to give New York City tons of money to be part of the congestion pricing program. Everything the councilman said, I agree with. You have to prep the city for congestion pricing. It's not going to happen overnight, and I doubt if it'll happen during this mayor's tenure. It's going to be a 3 to 4 year battle before congestion pricing could even happen. In those 4 years, we should be prepping all these areas that the councilman mentioned.
Then is this realistic for this mayor to promote all of this when it most likely isn't going to happen in under his tenure?
Well,
John, I mean, is this coming in?
I think, and I strongly encourage the mayor, I have commended him on his Earth Day speech. It sounded great. Now, I think we need to see some resolve. Otherwise, it does become empty rhetoric. And the resolve can be a real commitment to provide every single New Yorker a real mass transit option, a 30-minute ride to Manhattan at no more a round-trip fare than he would charge drivers.
You have suggested, though, that perhaps this is also because the mayor is considering running for president.
Well, if you consider a speech with a great deal of the glossy and fancy features, with no timeline, with a lot of lofty goals, I think that could be, people have construed that as a campaign rhetoric. But what I hope is that there's a real plan here and that there will be significant milestones achieved over the next 2 years.
Let's talk about a couple other things. Okay. I know you support this idea, but what about the idea of increasing the commuter tax, or just increasing, the amount of tolls that we pay to cross the bridge, or adding tolls on those East River bridges? Wouldn't that accomplish a lot of the same thing?
Well, adding tolls on the East River bridges would, but it creates a barrier that doesn't exist today, and I don't think we should be tolling people going through boroughs. In fact, the plan that I propose is to remove the tolls from the Rockaways, for example. Why do we toll people to go from Queens to Queens across the Cross Bay Boulevard Bridge? Or even why do we separate Brooklyn and the Bronx and Queens with tolls on the Throgs Neck, the Triborough, and the Whitestone Bridge? So I think the bridge is not the right approach. It's the central business district, and the only thing that has worked to reduce traffic, there are only two things. One is congestion pricing, and the other one was in the 70s when we had long lines waiting to get gasoline.
Gas prices.
I've been monitoring traffic flow through the years. It's been this.
Well, I'm
the
curious. You
70s
see gas prices right now above $3 a gallon. Are you seeing fewer people driving into the city because of that?
Not at all.
Not at all.
The sensitivity probably is at $6 to $10 a gallon before we could expect people to change their patterns.
Well, but that's because a lot of the people who drive into Manhattan don't have any other option. Or
they can afford it.
Well, no, I think
there's that element too.
I think there are a lot of people who are much more sensitive about the time. If it takes you 30 to 45 minutes to drive into Manhattan versus taking a local bus for 20 to 30 minutes and then getting on a very crowded subway for an hour and 15 minutes, which option are you going to choose? But if we offer every New Yorker that 30-minute ride to Manhattan, then it becomes a real choice. Take mass transit or drive. And we strongly encourage you to take mass transit. It will be affordable. If you drive into Manhattan, you are going to be penalized.
But let me ask you one other thing, too. Isn't this going to just foster the perception that Manhattan is just for the wealthy? Because if you can afford to come in and pay for that congestion fee, you are going to have people who can afford it coming in and those who can't not.
Well, first of all, what London and Stockholm have shown, everybody still comes in. They come in, they may change their time, they may switch to transit. Same number of people come into London. London's economy is booming. Their theaters are doing great. Their stock exchange is through the roof. The pound is double the dollar. So it hasn't really cut down on the number of people coming in. This is a Robin Hood program. This is one where the far right has embraced this program because it's a capitalist solution to a scarce resource space. The far left has embraced this because this takes money from the rich and gives to the poor in transit. Drivers are $15,000 to $20,000 richer per annum than the people in the subways. So it's a win-win for all these people.
Okay. We will see what happens on this one. It's an interesting proposal. We will see what happens. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us this morning and discussing it.